Well, today's bombing isn't the first at a major athletic event on U.S. soil. During the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, a bomb exploded in a crowded park. 2 people died there. The homemade bomb went off during a late-night concert attended by thousands. More than 100 people were injured in that bombing. Cities across the U.S. are on high alert as the multi-billion-dollar Homeland Security apparatus kicks in. And from coast to coast, amid the shock and fear, the hunt is on for the perpetrators. The CBC's Paul Hunter now on that. Paul.
Peter, Americans are being told not to panic when they see extra security forces on their streets tonight, that it's no sign of imminent danger, just a precaution. Just as Barack Obama was today, at once both forceful and cautious when addressing the twin blasts in Boston.
We still do not know who did this or why, and people shouldn't jump to conclusions before we have all the facts. But make no mistake, we will get to the bottom of this, and we will find out who did this. We'll find out why they did this. Any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice.
Hard words today from a somber U.S. president. And though he didn't once call it terrorism, the White House and the FBI are making it clear that's precisely how they view what happened in Boston.
But I just want to reiterate, we will find out who did this, and we will hold them accountable.
A big step toward that may be reports of 2 other bombs in Boston discovered unexploded. Forensic experts will now comb them for, if they're lucky, a fingerprint, a hair, anything that might lead them to who made it. Another clue? Simply that there was more than one bomb, period.
Potentially the sign of a more sophisticated attack. And as you noted, the shrapnel, the idea that there could have been ball bearings or something else in these explosives, clearly specifically trying to kill or maim, not just trying to have a small explosion and get some attraction. It's a sign of a terrorist organization that's trying to kill people.
Whoever's behind it, there's now a kind of security lockdown in parts of the U.S., a country that's long been hyper-security conscious. In New York, home to the 9/11 attacks, 1,000 extra security forces hit the streets almost immediately. In Boston tonight, citing concerns for public safety, the NHL game between the Bruins and the Ottawa Senators has been canceled. Then there's the timing. April 15th is close to a notorious date in U.S. history. April 19th, the day the Waco standoff ended violently, and the day of the Oklahoma City blast. Recall that day when 168 people were killed and early suspicions that it must have been foreign terrorists. In fact, an American was behind it. Is it any wonder Obama, though forceful, was today likewise cautious with his words?
Boston is a tough and resilient town. So are its people. I'm supremely confident that Bostonians will pull together, take care of each other, and move forward as one proud city. And as they do, the American people will be with them every single step of the way.
And keep in mind, security was already ramped up in Boston for that marathon, and yet this happened anyway. There's another major marathon set for this coming Sunday in Britain. And though we still don't know who was behind what happened in Boston, in London, they're already setting security into high gear. Peter.
All right, Paul, thanks very much. Paul Hunter. Well, as we told you, the Boston Marathon is a high security event on that city's calendar. So the questions tonight, what does the evidence point to so far? And what are authorities doing right now? Former CSIS intelligence officer Ray Boisvert is here to help us understand that. Ray, we know that officials in Boston and elsewhere in the U.S. are poring over those videotapes, the ones we've seen today, the ones they're probably getting from various security cameras along the route, looking for evidence. So we want you to try and help us on that by looking at some of the video that we've seen shot today. So we're going to roll that now. You tell us what you see in this video.
Well, Peter, there certainly is a relatively low volume explosion, and that's in relative terms, given the things we've seen in previous events. But I suspect, as Michael Leiter, the former U.S. official, indicated, it's probably something that included a fair amount of shrapnel material. We see a runner who's immediately put to the ground, and a number of others who've had severe injuries on site, including loss of limbs. So I suspect that this was meant to be more about the politics, perhaps the impact, because of where it was placed near the finish line at that precise moment within the 4-hour rate of the process of runners going through, which is a high volume place. So I think this had a lot to do with the visuals as much as it had to do with body count.
You know, I've heard some people speculating today on the fact that the smoke caused from the explosion was light in color, white almost, as opposed to dark, and that could tell us something. Does it necessarily tell us anything?
Well, I'm not a forensic explosive expert, but I certainly have seen many tapes and I've spoken to many experts on the subject, and clearly it's a lower intensity heat event, so likely much smaller, probably did not include any military type explosives, likely some sort of gunpowder or small amount of dynamite, which is easily accessible. Buying large amounts of fertilizer is very difficult in this day and age, and that certainly was not one of those types of explosions. So I'm thinking more artisanal in nature. It's more of an artisan approach. Therefore, I'm looking increasingly towards the idea that some form of homegrown extremist activity versus a state-sponsored event.
What about the location that was chosen for this? What do you make of that?
It's an iconic place. Outside of the Olympics, the Boston Marathon is about as big as it gets. There's a world international audience. It's chosen during a top end of a news cycle on a Monday afternoon, and I think you could not have thought of a better thing. So I think it's still a relatively, it may not be the most sophisticated plot, but I think it was very well choreographed from the timing to the positioning, multiple packages, and getting this type of exposure. So as the thing plays itself out, we'll have an interesting bit of insight as to who is behind it. And I suspect we'll come to those perpetrators fairly soon.
What do you think is going on right now in the various intelligence circles? What are they doing tonight?
They're in overdrive. They're going back over every little link piece of information and may have some relevance to either Boston, the marathon, extremist group chatter. They're going through tons of big data and they're using the best possible tools, but of course that's always a big challenge. They're looking at any number of links to social media, they're looking at intercept material, and they're challenging each other in terms of the information evidence and the analytics behind it, in terms of the judgments. Was there really a threat? Was there something we missed? And if so, how do we now run it to ground, get people tasked out in the field, and come up with some suspects?
All right, Ray, we'll leave it at that for now. Ray Boisvert, formerly with CSIS. Thanks, Ray.